Hello, everybody, and welcome to your weekly roundup from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. I see a lot of familiar faces, K9 Catherine and Melissa Webb, and therapists you know, Shy Gal, KLB, Beth, giving all the thumbs up that can be given. Thank you guys so much for being here. Welcome to everyone who is watching this on X and on Facebook. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for joining us. Let me introduce myself. My name is Joshua Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office, and now I am a private defense attorney, and you are watching Courtroom Confidential, where we do our best to bring you both sides of the courtroom. And this is your weekly roundup, which is a recap of all things this week in true crime. So as always, we're going to jump right in a second here. As always, please take a moment to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and share this with anybody who you think might enjoy it. But let's get rolling. After 14 years of struggle, a lawsuit, and a docuseries, hopes for the family of a Philadelphia woman are again dashed with the release of a new medical examiner's report. Plus, lawyers for the man accused of assassinating a healthcare executive on a New York sidewalk argue the feds are looking to sensationalize the killing for political gain. And an Arizona man accused of murder for the death of his 2-year-old daughter left in a car for 3 hours in 100-plus degree heat wins a small victory in court. All this and more this week on Courtroom Confidential. As you can tell, a lot for us to dive into this week. As always, I am honored. We are honored that you have chosen us to bring you these updates. I am your host, Joshua Ritter. I'm an award-winning Los Angeles prosecutor turned criminal defense attorney with 20 years experience navigating the criminal justice system, bringing you my unique insights from both sides of the courtroom. Today is Friday, October 17th, 2025, and this is your Courtroom Confidential weekly roundup. Let's jump in. Philadelphia's chief medical examiner has ruled that school teacher Ellen Greenberg died by suicide, the latest turn in a case that has seen multiple changes to the official findings since her 2011 death. In a 32-page report completed last week, Chief Medical Examiner Lindsay Simon wrote that although the distribution of Greenberg's wounds, more than 20 stab injuries and cuts to her neck, head, and torso, were, quote, admittedly unusual, the fact remains that Ellen would be capable of inflicting these injuries herself. Many of these stabs and incised wounds would best be categorized as hesitation wounds, Simon went on to explain. She also noted that there were no defensive wounds. Greenberg was found dead in the Philadelphia apartment that she shared with her fiancé, Samuel Goldberg. Goldberg told investigators he had gone to the gym that afternoon and returned to find the apartment door locked from the inside. According to the report, there was no sign that anyone entered Greenberg's apartment before Goldberg forced his way in. Investigators also found no evidence of a struggle or of anyone else using the knife found in her chest. The report notes that Greenberg, age 27, had been struggling with work-related anxiety, but told a psychiatrist she did not feel suicidal. The October 10th report comes more than a decade after the original pathologist, Dr. Marlon Osborne, first ruled Greenberg's death a homicide before later changing it to suicide. Greenberg's family sued the medical examiner's office, asking that the finding be reversed or changed to, quote, undetermined. In a court filing earlier this year, Osborne stated that Greenberg's death should be designated as something other than suicide. Attorneys for Greenberg's family sharply criticized this recent report, calling it a deeply flawed attempt to justify a predetermined conclusion and accusing the medical examiner of distorting details of Greenberg's mental health. Attorneys Joseph Pedraza and William Trask said the report ignored evidence suggesting Greenberg was killed by someone else, including unexplained bruising and a 3D model indicating it would have been impossible for her to inflict all of her own wounds. Ellen's family just wanted the truth, the statement said. It is clear the truth will not come from Philadelphia's law enforcement machinery. Though Ellen's city turned its back on her, we will continue through other avenues to get justice for her murder by any means necessary. What's happening here? Well, what, first of all, should we make of this? I know many are shocked by this. I know many are dismayed. I know many do not believe that this is the way things are possibly going to end up on this case. I will say that I am most shocked by the idea that whatever the medical examiner, this most recent medical examiner, whatever conclusion she was going to come to, I thought it would be at the very least undetermined. That seems like it would have been a very safe space for her to arrive at in this case. But I will say that reading this entire report, which I have done, reads more like an attempt to CYA than it was an objective attempt to get to the truth in this case. That might be cynical. Perhaps it is, and perhaps it's realistic, but that to me seems like how this report was written and the purpose that it was written for. I think the other thing we can learn about this is that expert opinions are just that, opinions. I think sometimes we put a little bit too much weight into an expert's opinion. Don't get lost in the sauce. These are opinions, not really evidence themselves. Are they evidence in court, in trial? Sure. They're expert opinion evidence. But you can find an expert to say almost anything. We've seen that in many cases that we have watched on this channel before. You can have experts for the defense, experts for the prosecution. The evidence, however, is different from that in my view. The evidence in this case is that she had 20 plus stab wounds of varying degrees of seriousness, okay? Now, what you make of those stab wounds is the opinion evidence. The opinion evidence is what can you derive from those stab wounds? What do those say? What do those say particularly as to the manner and cause of death in this case? And now you have an expert opinion saying that they believe it's best categorized as suicide. Does that mean that's what it is? Or does that mean that that is an expert's opinion on it? And I think we should always continue to remember that. But end of the day, I think that sadly, this may be the end of the road for the Greenberg family. Can they continue to fight? Absolutely. Can they hire another examiner? Can they raise funds for further litigation? Absolutely, they can, and they probably will. And according to their own attorneys, it looks like that's what they intend to do. But to what end? What's the end game here is a question I always ask myself. What will they do if they finally get themselves a report that classifies this as a homicide? Do they expect that the prosecution's office will open up a case? Do they expect that the investigators will make an arrest? I don't think any of that is going to happen at this point. What prosecutor's office is going to touch this case? Take it outside of Philadelphia even. Put it in the hands of the feds or anyone else. Are they going to touch this case that has become so muddied in the waters at this point? And that is incredibly unfortunate to me, that's the point that we've arrived at, that this case may be beyond repair at this point. But you could say, well, there's still the possibility of a civil case. I think, though, that that's what this attempt at having the medical examiner's report amended, that was the goal here, to somehow toll that statute of limitations when it came to a civil litigation in this case, somehow show that there was perhaps fraud or that they only became aware of a wrongful death lawsuit after the determination of a homicide in this case. But with this recent opinion, I think it might close the door on that. A civil case would have been remarkable. It would have opened up the opportunity for civil litigation. And you're talking about interrogatories and requests for documents and depositions, all things I'm sure the Greenbergs had hoped for. But again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I think the door may have closed on all of that. But what do you guys think? Do you think this is the end of the road for the Greenbergs? Please let us know in the comments. First of all, I want to thank Shy Gal for gifting 5 Courtroom Confidential memberships. Appreciate you, Shy Gal. Also to Fala Dammit for also gifting 5 Courtroom Confidential memberships. Appreciate you as well. And to Arizona Gal 89, you're fantastic. We always appreciate your generosity. She says 2 live shows in one day, and I caught them both. Thanks, Josh and mods. Hashtag what's happening here. Lawyers for the man accused of fatally shooting the United Healthcare CEO last year have asked a federal judge in Manhattan to throw out several charges against him, including the only charge that could carry the death penalty. Luigi Mangione's defense accused prosecutors of overreaching and using federal laws in ways they weren't intended to sensationalize the killing. Mangione's lawyers also argue his statements to law enforcement should be excluded at trial, claiming he wasn't read his Miranda rights before being questioned at a McDonald's. Finally, they argue that police searched his backpack, where they allegedly found a gun and ammunition tied to the murder, without a warrant, violating Fourth Amendment protections against unlawful searches. While murder cases are typically tried in state court, prosecutors charged Mangione under a federal law covering murders committed with firearms during other crimes of violence. In this case, the underlying crime being stalking. That's the only charge that could bring the death penalty, which the New York state itself does not impose. Mangione is accused of killing Brian Thompson on December 4th outside a Manhattan hotel hosting an investors conference. Judge Miriam Goldberg of the Southern District of New York has scheduled oral arguments for December 5th. What's happening here? This is what you call a kitchen sink motion. It's throwing everything and anything at the wall in the hopes of some of it possibly sticking. But I will tell you, good on the defense here, because they're coming off of a big win. You remember in the state case, we're talking about the federal case here today, but in the state case, a couple weeks back, they won a huge argument with the judge as far as terrorism charges go. They were able to convince the judge that this murder was not committed in the furtherance of terrorism, which changed it from first degree to second degree in New York, which was no small feat, because it changed it from life without parole to the possibility of a sentence as low as 15 years to life. Coming off of that big win, I think they feel momentum, and I think they're thinking to themselves, shoot the moon on the federal case and see if we can't get charges dismissed when it comes to the death penalty charge in this case as well. And you might be surprised to hear, and it's hard for me to even say, but this is not a stretch for them. The stalking charge in this case does seem to be reaching by the prosecution. To prove stalking in a federal case, you have to prove, one, that a person crossed state lines. Not much of an issue here. He did go from other states, including Pennsylvania, into New York to commit this murder. But it also stalking has to do with putting the victim in some sort of state of fear. If I'm Mangione's attorneys, I'm asking the question, did Thompson even know that Mangione existed? Did he have any idea that he was being followed? Did he have any idea that he was being harassed or targeted? The things that stalking is aimed at protecting victims from. If you're his defense attorneys, you're saying to yourself, listen, Your Honor, this is a typical square peg, round hole situation with the federal government, and they're trying to find any underlying crime that allows them to bootstrap the murder so that they can bring federal charges and the weapons charges, making him eligible for the death penalty. And they might have problems here. No joke. It might be a real problem come December 5th, and we will be looking forward to those arguments. A couple of other issues that they're bringing up here, which gives us a good opportunity to always revisit these issues, is one, they're arguing about his Miranda rights. He wasn't read his rights. He wasn't read his rights. I don't know how many times I've been told that by a potential client. He was not read his rights before he was arrested. You don't have to be read your rights in every situation. It's only one, if the prosecution is seeking to introduce your statements against you at trial, and two, if you are in what's called custody and under interrogation. We're looking for that term, custodial interrogation. So the argument's going to be here is a man sitting in a McDonald's in custody, Prosecution's going to say no. He's obviously objectively free to go. He's not sitting in the back of a squad car or at the station. He's not in handcuffs. He's sitting at a McDonald's enjoying his breakfast. But the defense is going to say, yeah, but he's talking to two officers who have guns on their hips and badges on their chest. That's not exactly somebody free to go. Then the question comes, was he being interrogated? That is, questions being asked of him to elicit a response in regards to an investigation. Officers could say, we were just having a conversation. He was volunteering much of the information to us without him being questioned. As far as the warrantless search of his bag, again, we can look for different types of arguments that can get us around Fourth Amendment issues in this case. One, did officers have probable cause to go into that bag? Were they concerned about officer safety? Remember, he's been identified by other people as a potentially armed and dangerous individual. This could be the shooter of the healthcare executive here at this McDonald's. They're going to be concerned about their safety. Might looking inside of that bag for potential weapons, which they did find, be something that would be within the realm of reasonable behavior by the officers. Perhaps they only searched the bag after his arrest. Timing is very important here. That's another thing we're going to look for on December 5th. But I will tell you this too. I don't know how many times I've seen it. It happens more often than you would think. It could be that he gave them consent. It could be that Mangione said, sure, go ahead and take a look. Can we look in that bag just to make sure we're all safe here? Sure, go ahead and take a look. We shall see. It will be interesting come December 5th. But what do you guys think? Do you think that stalking, as we've described it, applies in this case? And if it doesn't, does the prosecution have problems here? Please let us know in the comments. Joy W says, I would say that the CEO had no idea. Otherwise, he wouldn't be just walking alone in the street. I think that's a reasonable observation. Joy W, thank you for that. The Off-White Lotus with a super chat. Thank you so much for the super sticker. And new details are emerging as trial approaches for Christopher Schultes, an Arizona father accused of murder after leaving his 2-year-old daughter in a hot car for hours. Schultes, age 38, is charged with first-degree murder and intentional child abuse in the July 2024 death of his youngest child. Schultes left the toddler in his vehicle for more than 3 hours while he sat inside his home playing video games, according to multiple court documents previously filed in the case. The temperature inside the car that day allegedly reached 109 degrees. Schultes reportedly told police he left his child in her car seat with the air conditioning running because she was asleep, but then forgot about her, despite knowing that his vehicle automatically shuts off after 30 minutes. In newly released court filings, prosecutors sought to introduce evidence that Schultes searched for pornography on his PlayStation during that time, but Judge Kimberly Ortiz denied the request. In her order, she ruled that prosecutors and witnesses are barred from mentioning the alleged 2-minute search at trial. Investigators have said Schultes' 2 surviving daughters, who were ages 6 and 9 at the time, told police their father had also left them alone in the car before. The complaint also included a text Schultes' wife allegedly sent him as their youngest child was being rushed to the hospital. Quote, I told you to stop leaving them in the car. How many times have I told you? Schultes pleaded not guilty after rejecting a plea deal to reduce the charge to second-degree murder earlier this year. His trial is scheduled to begin October 27th. What's happening here? Well, did the judge make the right call here? I think the judge absolutely did. And you might be saying to yourself, why? The truth is the truth. Why not get it out? If he was searching for pornography, why not let the jurors know that? Isn't that important for them to understand what he was doing while his own 2-year-old daughter was experiencing this horrible, nightmarish death? Well, remember, in all of these situations, when considering the admissibility of any evidence, it's not just can it be admitted, it's should it be admitted. This is the call the judge has to make. They have to weigh and balance between probative and prejudicial value in each piece of evidence. Is this evidence probative? Sure. Is it Does it help us further understand his mindset to know that while his child was sitting in a car in the middle of summer in Arizona, that he was on his PlayStation searching for pornography? Yes, that might be helpful for the jurors to understand. But is it prejudicial? Absolutely. Think about the way you reacted to hearing that information. That is going to be exactly how jurors would react to hearing this information. Disgusted, appalled. And if they're using that emotional response to come to a conclusion, to come to a verdict in this case, that is something that the judge has to avoid. The judge wants to make sure that this case is decided on the facts and not emotion, because emotion can lead to potential appeal. I think the judge made the right call here. But when it comes to this other ruling that the judge made, it's far more impactful on this case. And it's the idea of the prior bad acts of leaving his other children in the car in prior instances. That is going to have much more of an effect on this case and be much more powerful, I think, for the prosecution than even the pornography search was. This is not character evidence. Keep that in mind. Whenever we're talking about prior bad acts, we have to decide, is this being used as character evidence? In other words, are they trying to get jurors to understand that he's a bad man who therefore commits bad things? And if that's the answer to the question, then it's impermissible. But if it's being used for a permissible purpose, then it can be allowed. And in this case, one of those permissible reasons is to show the absence of mistake. That is going to be his entire defense here, is that he made a mistake. It was an awful mistake. It was a horrific mistake. It was a nightmare, but it was a mistake. Well, if they can show, listen, a mistake is something that happens once, maybe twice, then you learn your lesson. But if this has happened multiple times before, that your children are complaining about it and testifying against you, that your own wife has sent you a text message saying, you know, this happened before, I told you don't do this. Now we're no longer dealing with mistakes. We're dealing with prior bad acts that can be used against you to show that you likely committed the act this time. And what are we talking about here? Why is this so important? Well, we're trying to get down to the difference between first degree and second degree murder. Remember, he's charged with first degree murder here. I will say, in my opinion, I do think that is overcharging on the part of the prosecution. Does everything that we've learned so far indicate to you premeditation to kill his own daughter? Does this look like the act of a man who wanted his daughter to be dead? Or is this a man who was so reckless in his behavior, so extremely indifferent to her safety that she died? If it sounds like the latter, then what you've done is essentially describe textbook second-degree murder in this case, and I think that's what it is. But that's why the understanding about the prior bad acts becomes so important for prosecutors to explain to jurors so that they understand this is, in fact, murder and not something less. But what do you guys think? Is this first-degree murder in your view? Second-degree murder? Something other than that? Please let us know in the comments. Full-Throated Motion says, yeah, first doesn't fit the bill for me, and I think I agree with you, Full-Throated Motion. Therapist says, that would mean he did it on purpose, and I don't think it was on purpose, and I think I agree with you, Therapist And Terry L says, the text is really damning, in my opinion. I couldn't agree more, Terry L. Thank you for that. Hey, everybody. As you can tell, it's been a very busy week. But before I get into the other cases making headlines, I just wanted to take a moment to ask you a very small favor. And that is, if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel now. We want to be able to provide you with the highest quality content that we can. And the best way that we can do that is through your support. Also making headlines. The matriarch of a wealthy South Florida family was sentenced Monday to life in prison for her role in the 2014 murder for hire of her former son-in-law. Florida State University law professor Dan Markell was killed outside his Tallahassee home while in a bitter custody battle with his ex-wife, Wendy Adelson, the daughter of now convicted murderer Donna Adelson. Last month, the jury found Donna, age 75, guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy, and solicitation. She received life without parole for the murder charges, plus 30 additional years for the other 2 counts to be served consecutively. She has vowed to appeal. Before sentencing, Donna spoke in court claiming she was wrongly convicted. Quote, "What happened to Danny is unforgivable, but I am an innocent woman convicted of this terrible crime without evidence," she said. "I've always respected the law. I've never gotten a parking ticket, but I'm going to prison for a murder I did not commit," she added. Judge Stephen Everett interrupted her several times, saying her remarks showed an utter lack of remorse. Donna stood silently as he delivered her sentence. "You certainly can choose to deny your involvement and maintain innocence," Everett said. "The court finds the evidence in this case is clear." Donna is the 5th person sentenced in the murder plot. Her son, Charlie Adelson, is already serving a life sentence for his role. Her defense team argued that the evidence tying her to the murder was weak and instead cast suspicion on her 2 children, Charlie and Wendy Adelson. Wendy, who testified in her mother's trial under a grant of immunity, has denied involvement and has not been charged. An Ohio jury on Wednesday rejected the insanity claim of a woman charged in the stabbing death of a 3-year-old boy. Bianca Ellis was convicted of aggravated murder and attempted murder for the random attack on Julian and his mother, Margot Wood, outside a Giant Eagle grocery store in North Olmsted on June 3rd, 2024. Ellis showed no emotion as Judge John Russo read the verdict. The week-and-a-half-long trial featured testimony from officers, bystanders, psychiatric experts, and Margot Wood herself. Prosecutors and defense attorneys agreed Ellis had schizophrenia, but disagreed on whether it prevented her from understanding the wrongfulness of her actions at the time of the killing. Earlier that day, Ellis tried to collect money she thought was owed at a North Olmsted police station, then in a fit of anger, shoplifted knives from a thrift store. Surveillance video showed Ellis inside the Giant Eagle holding a knife for about a minute before spotting Julian and his mother. She then followed them into the parking lot. Margot Wood testified that as she was loading groceries, Ellis attacked. She said Ellis stabbed Julian in the face, then stabbed her in the shoulder before returning to Julian and stabbing him in the back. After court, Margot thanked those who stood by her family, saying, "This was for him today," referring to Julian. Ellis will be sentenced on October 27th and faces life in prison. Attorneys for a Utah mother accused of fatally poisoning her husband have filed a motion to get the victim's sister to hand over documents showing the financial activities of his living trust. The motion, filed last Thursday, is the latest in a string of filings in the high-profile case against 35-year-old Corey Richens, accused of killing Eric Richens with a fatal dose of fentanyl in March of 2022. Defense attorneys say Eric's sister, Katie Richens Benson, who oversees his estate and has filed a separate multi-million-dollar civil suit against Corey, has refused to fully comply with a subpoena for trust documents. They're asking the court to compel her to provide bank statements and financial records, including a breakdown of anyone paid by the trust. According to the motion, at least 2 witnesses for the prosecution have also been paid employees of the trust. The defense argues that knowing how much they were paid and whether other witnesses received payments is crucial to assessing credibility and potential bias. Prosecutors have argued monetary gain was a leading motive in Eric's murder. On Thursday, prosecutors also disputed alleged drug dealer Robert Crozier's claim that he actually sold Oxycontin, not fentanyl, to Richens' housekeeper. Quote, Robert Crozier's recent assertion that he misunderstood that the pills he sold Carmen Lauber contained only Oxycontin does not amount to a material change in circumstance. Regardless, substantial evidence exists to support the aggravated murder charge, notwithstanding Mr. Crozier's recent assertion. Richens is set to go to trial in February 2026. If convicted of aggravated murder and attempted aggravated murder, Richens faces up to life in prison. The father of a 7-month-old baby boy who has been missing for over 2 months has pled guilty to murder, authorities announced Thursday. Jake Haro entered guilty pleas to second-degree murder filing a false police report, and assaulting a child, according to the Riverside County District Attorney's Office. The plea comes just over 2 months after baby Emmanuel was last seen, as officials continue searching for his remains. Rebecca Haro, Emmanuel's mother and Jake's wife, did not enter a plea. She still faces charges of murder and filing a false report. Rebecca had claimed her son was kidnapped from a Yucaipa sporting goods store on October 14th, saying, "I took him out of the car seat and I laid him on the chair, and I had his diapers right here. Someone said, 'Hola,' and I couldn't even turn, and I don't remember nothing." Rebecca said her next memory was waking up to find Emmanuel gone. Investigators later uncovered inconsistencies in her story. Within a week of the search for Emmanuel, both parents stopped cooperating, prompting the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department to announce that a kidnapping had not occurred. Authorities concluded that Emmanuel is believed deceased, and the search for his remains continues. According to court documents, Emmanuel was likely killed days before Rebecca's false kidnapping report, with the last confirmed sighting on August 5th. Jake previously pled guilty in 2018 to willful neglect of a child after severely abusing his 10-week-old daughter, who now suffers permanent injuries, including cerebral palsy. Rebecca remains in custody on a $1 million bail and will have her preliminary hearing on November 3rd. Jake's sentencing is also scheduled for November 3rd. A Massachusetts police detective accused of killing a pregnant woman he once mentored will go on trial next October. Former Stoughton officer Matthew Farwell was indicted in August of 2024 in the death of 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore, whose body was found in her Canton apartment on February 4th of 2021. Birchmore was 3 months pregnant at the time. Farwell is accused of strangling Birchmore after learning of her pregnancy and staging her death to look like a suicide. According to the indictment, Farwell had engaged in sexual acts with Birchmore before she was 15 years old. Birchmore was part of a youth program for children interested in law enforcement careers called Stoughton Police Explorers Academy. Farwell, who was 27 at the time of the alleged assault, was a volunteer instructor. Investigators said Matthew Farwell used his authority and access to groom, sexually exploit, and ultimately sexually abuse Birchmore and continued to have sex with her when she became an adult. In December of 2020, Birchmore learned that she was pregnant. Soon after, she told Farwell that he was the father of the child and that she expected him to be involved in the child's life. Federal investigators say in January of 2021, Birchmore's friend called the Stoughton Police Department and referenced Farwell and Birchmore's sexual relationship. Federal authorities allege Farwell killed Birchmore a week later to prevent her from exposing his criminal conduct. Her death was initially ruled a suicide, but a federal review uncovered new evidence leading to the murder charge. A trial date has been set for October 5th of 2026. The government must determine by January of 2026 if it will seek the death penalty. The man accused of sparking the deadly California Palisades fire now faces up to 45 years in prison. A federal grand jury has indicted 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht, adding 2 new felony charges: arson affecting property used in interstate commerce and timber set afire, to his existing charge of destruction of property by means of fire. Rinderknecht has been in federal custody since his October 7th arrest. According to the indictment, on the evening of December 31st, 2024, Rinderknecht, who was driving for Uber, dropped off a passenger in the Pacific Palisades before parking at the Skull Rock trailhead. Prosecutors say Rinderknecht started a fire shortly after midnight on New Year's Day. The initial blaze, known as the Lockman Fire, later reignited days later as the Palisades Fire, one of the most destructive in Los Angeles history. The fire burned more than 23,000 acres and killed 12 people. Acting U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley said evidence from Rinderknecht's digital devices included an AI-generated image of a burning city, which prosecutors cited as part of the investigation. Rinderknecht's arraignment will take place in the coming weeks in federal court in Los Angeles. Before we get into the cases for the week, I just wanted to share with you a story that happened to me at CrimeCon this year. If you're a follower of this channel, you already know, but I lost temporarily my passport. I've got it back now. Thank you very much. But while it was gone, it is such an unnerving feeling to know that your personal information could be in the hands of another person. But what brought me a little peace of mind was knowing that I had identity theft insurance through Aura, our first ever sponsor. If you've ever wondered how scammers get your information and why your inbox is full of junk, this is why. Data brokers collect and sell your information without your permission, and they make billions doing it. And that is why we are proud to partner with Aura. Aura does the hard work for you. They scrub your information from the internet, protecting it from those shady sites and making sure that your information is kept safe. But it's more than just data removal. It's also about digital security. That's why I felt such comfort even when my passport was lost. You get dark web alerts, bank fraud monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, a password manager, and up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all in one app. Try Aura today, free for 14 days at aura.com/courtroomconfidential. It's free to try, it protects you, and it helps support the show. Please check it out. Before we get to what's coming up next week, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for being a part of this growing community. But I want to give a special shout out to Kim Carlisle for your kind words on Apple Podcasts, and to our CC crew members, Deb in Indiana and Dr. Pepper Princess 91 for your comments on YouTube. We can't thank you enough for your continued support. Please keep those reviews coming. We appreciate your help in getting out the word about Courtroom Confidential. On the docket for next week, Howard Rubin, a 70-year-old retired investment banker federally charged with sex trafficking, will return to court on Monday, October 20th for a pretrial hearing. Nicholas Rossi, the man accused of faking his death and fleeing the U.S. to avoid sexual assault allegations, will be sentenced on Monday, October 20th in Salt Lake City, after a jury convicted him of rape in August. It Ends With Us co-stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni are set for a status hearing on Tuesday, October 21st. Lively's civil lawsuit against Wayfarer Studios director and co-star Baldoni and others alleging sexual harassment and a retaliatory smear campaign is currently set for trial in March of next year. Former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez's first pretrial conference is set for Wednesday, October 22nd. Sanchez faces felony and misdemeanor charges after allegedly attacking a 69-year-old truck driver. And finally, please join us this Sunday for the premiere of the latest episode in our Courtroom Confidential Conversation series. Learn all about the Behavior Panel's Scott Rouse at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, and you can find the link in the description. And we will see you, hopefully, in the live chat. In the meantime, that is it for us this week, folks. I am your host, Josh Ritter. You can find us on social media at CR Confidential on X, at The Courtroom Confidential on Instagram, or at thecourtroomconfidential.com. Thank you again for joining me. Have a great weekend, and I will see you again next week for another episode of Courtroom Confidential. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being with us on this Friday. We hope that you enjoyed that, catching up on everything in true crime. It does seem like a lot when you hear it all put together there. Martha Ivy says, definitely looking forward to Sunday. Nashay's an extraordinary machine. Yes, you are. Says, about to take my first practice LSAT to prepare for the February test. Maybe Josh has some wise words of wisdom. Oh boy, I don't know. Make sure you got snacks with you because that thing is grueling. The LSAT, I remember it just being so, you feel like you can't catch a breath. Stay calm. You're going to do great. Everybody has trust in you, and we're all sending good vibes your way, Nishay. That's exciting stuff. Everybody, please. Oh, Colorblind Days. Thank you so much for the super chat. Says, thoughts on the stalking of Lauren Matthias from Hidden True Crime. You know, I've heard about this. I know that she put out a long video about it. I don't have thoughts. my thoughts are that I hope she's well. I hope she's safe. But I'm going to leave it to her to comment on any of that. I feel like that is kind of outside of my lane, but thank you for that. Colorblind Days. Kathala just became a member. Welcome, Kathala. Everybody send Kathala some juice boxes. T. Suze, I know you for gifting a Courtroom Confidential membership. Appreciate that. D says, love the brief updates on all these cases. Well, thank you, D, for stopping by. We love you being here. Some more announcements for you guys. As I said, Sunday, no Sunday fun day. Don't get too sad. Don't curl up in a ball. It's going to be okay. We're going to all survive it. We're going to have Sunday fun day again. But this Sunday, we're going to have a special presentation of our conversation series with Scott Rouse. I've been working a long time to get him on the show, and we're looking forward to premiering his interview, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. That will be live at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern this Sunday. And then Monday, as always, be right back here for a live true crime docket at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Rosie says, welcome all the new members. I send my welcome to all of you as well. Bice says it's Pink Sand. Pink Sand t-shirt. I like that name. I don't think it is Pink Sand. Tiff, you got about 13 seconds to tell us what the actual name of it is. Shirt today, Sandstorm. I don't know where this sand stuff is coming from, says Ann Potter. T. Sue says it's called Orchid. Is that in fact true? Retiring soon. Oh, I didn't know we're retiring colors now. Well, we'll have to make an announcement about that. If you want to get flamingo feathers, as Afton says, or orchid, so says Tiffany, or love dove, says Rosie, pink pearl, says Libby, well, then you know where to come, guys. In the meantime, though, let me give a big shout out and thanks to our mods, Afton, Shy Gao, Kathy, and therapists. You know, you're all fantastic, and we couldn't be doing this without you. And to Kaylin for everything that you do, making this all run so smoothly. And Tiffany, as always, for being the best thing that ever happened to me. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday, guys, and we will see you all Sunday and back here live on Monday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.